Welcome to A Day with FMZ, a global initiative to bring in the leadership perspective and also education series touching upon FM fraternity and contributing to the growth of it. And today we have expert from industry, Mr. Gordon. Welcome, Mr. Gordon. And I also have my co-host, Lisa. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you very much. Gordon,
And
thank you so much for joining us.
Sure,
over to
my
you,
pleasure.
Lisa.
Gordon, you combine a background in architecture with strong facilities and project management skills to lead a team of professionals who manage critical healthcare projects in facilities that are operating all the while. What do you consider your most valuable skill for that work?
Wow, in a healthcare environment, probably agility. I never really know what I'm going to experience, each morning at work. There's always a new situation, a new dynamic, a new problem that we have to address. And so, being agile, being able to solve problems on the fly, advise people on how to approach certain things. I think that's probably my most important skill. And that comes from experience. Frankly, I think each of us are sort of made up of our life's experiences. Our life's experiences sort of create who we become, and that's really how I feel about FM. My life's experience as an architect and working on various different types of buildings, all sorts of civic buildings, from prisons to schools and hospitals and other civic facilities, has really enabled me to think quickly on my feet and make sure that folks are moving in the right direction. So that's probably my most important skill is agility.
Excellent.
Thank you. I think adaptability and agility are very, very important, especially in project. And good to hear that the diverse projects experience you have. And if you have to look at the biggest challenges that your team faces today in managing, what are the biggest challenges you can think of that what the team is facing today to manage such projects?
Well, I think in a healthcare environment, our primary objective is patient safety. Our secondary objective really is our own safety as we manage these projects and the safety of the trades and the contractors around out in the field. So that brings a lot of dynamics into facilities management. Frankly, when you're managing a project or changing a boiler, or even right now we're in the middle of a vacuum pump replacement, there's patients that are depending upon that vacuum pump. Their lives are depending upon it. And so when you're replacing a critical piece of equipment like that, it requires a lot more forethought than just replacing a pump. There's a lot of planning that goes into that. And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges of working in a healthcare environment is the forethought and the planning. We actually develop MOPs, methods and procedures that are step-by-step, that take into account patient safety the whole way through. How are we providing these backup systems that patients will be able to utilize while we are replacing a critical piece of equipment? Some of those MOPs for a very simple pump replacement like that are well over 100 steps to get that pump changed out. And so managing each one of those steps and ensuring that they're going correctly. Also, we like to do a kind of a critical thinking exercise as part of the MOP, and we will develop ask ourselves, what are the three things that would make us lay awake at night if they happened during this project? And more often than not, those exercises of going through the critical thinking exercise of contingency planning, more often than not, we call into play one of those scenarios, and we're able to, because we've already thought through it. We have solutions online. One of the examples I can think of was we were moving a very large piece of it was an MRI, very an 18,000 pound magnet into place, and in order to do that, we had to block off a trauma corridor where the heliport elevator had access directly to the trauma center. We're in a level 1 trauma center. We had to block that corridor for a period of time while the magnet was moved through it. And we made arrangements ahead of time for air traffic to notify us when there was an inbound patient on a helicopter. And for whatever reason, that communication failed. And so we heard the helicopter before we were notified. We had the magnet literally in the middle of the hallway. We've got containments up because in healthcare environments, you have to protect the airborne contaminants that occur when you're doing construction. And we hear the helicopter. We realize we need to make a change. We need to enact one of our contingency plans. And we had the containment removed. We had the magnet contained in a new containment. And we watched the patient get wheeled through the corridor while we all were inside the containment, praying, that the patient was okay, but also thanking our lucky stars that we got everything done like we thought we would. So it didn't end up being a crisis for that patient. It was just, some quick thinking and planning ahead of time that enabled all that to happen just like clockwork.
Wow. It sounds like you have a fabulous team.
We do.
I suspect that your firm is experiencing the same kind of staffing challenges as the rest of us, though. So you must have developed some tools to avoid running from one crisis to another. How have you stopped that crisis cycle with your teams?
Yeah, we call it whack-a-mole mode. We've got to be out of whack-a-mole mode, or else you're in the crazy cycle. And nobody likes to be in the crazy cycle, just reactive all day long. From a project management standpoint, that's one thing. But when we're advising FMs, we're heavily engaged with the director of infrastructure at the hospital, as well as the plant ops and maintenance folks there. And what we encourage them to do is dedicate a staff member to taking care of unplanned maintenance tasks. Because if you don't start that dedication, you'll never really get there. And so typically we will take a look at their maintenance staff and have 10 to 15% of the staff just flip, and all they do is scheduled maintenance. And then they ramp. The goal is to ramp that up. And what we've found at University of Arizona, College of Medicine, and other locations like that, where things were reversed and they were in 100% whack-a-mole mode with FM, that it takes about 18 months to 2 years to flip that equation. And another one of our examples is Vision Service Plan, VSP, in Sacramento. They're the eyeglass folks that most people have as an employee benefit here in the States. But what we found with them is that it was about 18 months. We flipped it from about 15% of planned maintenance up to 85% of their maintenance is planned. And about 15 to 20% maybe is unplanned or emergencies. So they're no longer in whack-a-mole mode, but it takes a planned approach to that. You can't wake up one morning and just flip it, because you're going to have those issues. We had a senator get locked in an elevator here in California, and when we finally ended up getting someone out to get him out of the elevator that had broken down, we realized that the state had let the elevator service contract lapse. And there was nobody on call. There was no maintenance being done, So that's how you create whack-a-mole mode is just no planning and no monitoring of situations. As far as project management goes, again, I have a great team, and my team is very able to move from one project to another because the issues are somewhat similar, and so they're able to move around. And I've got some folks kind of spread thin, but it's just all the nature of the environment we're in right now.
Thank you. I think what is more critical and important is about how do we be more proactive than reactive. I think if you look at a cost comparison, then a reactive, how it can lead to business downtime. So one of the biggest challenges an FM everybody faces is all about getting the sufficient budgets for them to operate their facility, right? So if you look at from perspective, they expect more, but the budgets given are always, that's a challenge and it's going to be there, right? So how do you communicate the urgency for new maintenance and repair needs when the budgets are very tight and management feels or perceives that things are just fine, your buildings are well maintained, right? Right? This is a common everybody faces across the globe. So how do you address this?
Yeah, I'm. It's all my clients face it. Certainly, we worked with the city of Berkeley, and they were in this situation, and the city council thought, there's no problem. Our buildings are well maintained. Everything's great. You don't need any more money, and so they approved paint and carpet budget only for about 3 years in a row, and then the maintenance folks brought us on to help them see through how to get additional funding. And so I said, the first thing we need to do is we need to understand what the need is, where the problems are. So we did an assessment of their facilities. We validated their asset list to make sure we understood really what they had. And we took a look at those assets in terms of risk and age. So this took a little bit of an investment on the part of FM, but it wasn't a huge investment to do this. And that showed us where their highest risk was. And then what we did is we put a report together that for the city council that showed the risk and what would happen what services they would have to stop offering their constituents should a failure occur of one of these high risk pieces of equipment. And we, identified these particular particular assets as critical, and they did have severe impact on the services the city could offer. We put a report together and we asked them the question, should this central plant go down on this facility, where will you house the folks that are going to be displaced in this facility? We asked questions in our business case. So those questions were read in the presentation, and you could see people, the council members, kind of squirming in their seats. I think that's the biggest thing maybe FMs miss in business cases is really painting the picture of the risk should there be a failure. And so that's something that we include now. There's, not only do you have the age of the asset and the expected useful life, but what is the risk should that asset fail? And then people start to see, we need to get these guys additional funds because that risk is unacceptable. We can't do that. We just had a boiler situation at the hospital. It's a building that's going to be demolished in 2030. So that's 7-8 years away. And so the CFOs, well, why do we need to replace a boiler? We're going to demolish this building in 7 years. And in our analysis, our risk analysis, we said, these boilers are a few $100,000, but we have about 35 ICU patients. So what's the plan for transporting 35 ICU patients to another facility regionally? They're like, I guess we need to replace the boilers. Because I think an ICU bed for them is it's millions of dollars in a year that they receive in funding. And so I think putting it that way was like, this makes sense to replace the boilers. So we're right in the middle of a boiler replacement project right now. So I think risk, in addition to useful life remaining, those two in combination, it kind of follows IFMA's model for contingency planning, which is you have a risk, and then you have on the other side of the equation, you have the probability of that risk happening. And so, the probability kind of is maybe the useful life part of the equation. And then the risk is what is the implications of this, this asset going down. And you kind of multiply those two together and you come up with a conclusion, and then you pose some very serious questions to the leadership. What will we do if this asset is no longer available to us to fulfill our mission. And once you make those connections, then the C-suite or leaders, financial leaders, can see, oh, this, I need to prioritize this. So that helps us.
Thank you. That's a super smart approach to help them understand what will happen if they don't. And it very much highlights the importance of the asset inventory. What advice would you give to a facility manager who's just inherited a profile, an asset portfolio with no formal systems or procedures in place? So they just don't really know what they have or what condition it's in.
Yeah, we unfortunately run into this a lot, where someone retires and they really haven't done a great job of succession planning or setting up systems for the future leadership to take over. And so someone takes over the position and there's nothing to go by. There are spreadsheets or we've had, literally those old ledger pages, and they have the assets. I mean, it's shocking, honestly. But so we go in and chat with them. The very first thing that I say you need to do in that situation, you have to understand what you have, because unless you understand what you have for assets, then you don't know what you need in the way of staff. You don't know what you need in the way of systems. You don't know what you need in the way of vendors. You don't know really anything. And so our advice is always to start with validating what you have. A lot of times as-built drawings are out of date. People have gone in and made repairs with incorrect equipment. And so you have a piece of equipment trying to do a job that it was never cut out to do. And it's potentially even causing more damage, And so validating what you have so that you can understand what you need. A lot of times public agencies, especially, I'm in the public sector council here, but public agencies will employ a consultant to do that because everyone has their day jobs and they have to continue doing what they're doing. And so bringing a consultant in to help with some of those situations can be very helpful.
Smart.
Thank you, Gordon. I think you summarized well. One of the critical thing about an asset is to understand the useful life and what kind of maintenance strategies we need to follow, and how effective these maintenance strategies are, and are we really doing the failure mode impact analysis? Are we doing a run to failure? So we need to understand what are the critical assets and how do we ensure that we build a business. As you rightly said, where we typically fail is to build a strong business case. Why do I need so much of funds to manage this equipment? And today every business asks and demand for 100% uptime. If I cannot rely on my equipment, if I don't increase efficiency, and it will be very, very challenging for an FM to deliver 100% uptime. In the same way, how are we integrating these sustainability initiatives in managing energy efficiency, reducing the consumption, increasing efficiency becomes a very challenging, right? So thank you for sharing your insights. I'm sure a lot of FMs will definitely look through these points, and we keep learning and we keep growing the fraternity. And thank you for joining us today, and keep watching us.
Very good.
Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Sure.
See there, no need for editing.
Well, you guys were so great.
That was really good. Thank you so much, Gordon.
Sure.
Thank you, Gordon. It was great interacting with you.
Gordon has been a sort of a rising star. He just changed positions and he's going to become, we have another year on public sector, right?
Right.
Yeah. He's going to become public sector council president when I drop off.
Oh, so this was an initiative, I think, just to give a background, Gordon, I think Lisa and post 2019, when I met Lisa for the first time in Phoenix, we are in touch. We are thinking that we should do something at a global level, actually how we can bring out a leader perspective. So typically webinars happens and all these things, but exclusive leadership thoughts were very, very important. That is where we felt we need to bring leaders across the globe to give their perspective. And we discussed a lot. Then we thought we'll create a framework. So we split it into two parts. One is leadership series and education series. Education series is where to start that's going to be about 10 to 15 education video bites, right? Um, so this is where we also need more support from the industry leaders. And if you think somebody can be part of this leadership series, you think they can definitely add value at a global level, please, you can write to us or to me or Lisa.
And
Definitely, with your vast experience, would like to have one more round with you. Typically, today asset management is one of the critical aspects because we are spending highest number of budget into that, and understanding a lifespan of the equipment degradation because it becomes very critical for people to look at when you have to replace an equipment, then continue to repair it, right? So affecting
so,
the business.
so we'll send you another request. But Vinay, I was just gonna tell you that Gordon actually has been developing some like mini webinars for Public Sector Council. And
Very
I
nice.
think that for the educational series, we could probably tap him because he likes
Yes,
doing stuff
yes,
like that.
Sure.
yes.
So
Sure.
Gordon, if we're looking for maybe 10-minute shorts on small topics.
Okay.
So a microcosm of what you did on that project management for the webinar, things like that.
Sure.
If you want
Sure.
to do any of those, let us know.
Sure.
We
I'm
have
happy
yet to record our first one, so we can't show you a model yet, but
Okay.
we're getting there.
Well, we might have to create the model. So.
Yes, yes.
That's all good. That's great.
Yeah, we'd love to have you in there.
Sure. Sure. Have you tapped Michelle?
Michelle Thoreau?
Yeah.
No, not yet. Or Terrio, sorry.
I thought
That's a really good idea.
Thoreau, but yeah, he's
Terrio, yeah.
Terrio. Okay. So, but he's very much like me on the strategic side. And then which a lot of the FMs in the audience aren't the strategic thinkers. They're
Right.
more of the tactical thinkers.
Right.
And they're dealing with those day-to-day whack-a-mole situations. So I think